Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. It is 3:45 afternoon, and we are delighted to be having a legislator public hearing on the FY26 budget. So welcome all of you who are here and the rest of you who are coming. Just so you know how this works, for this hearing, each legislator will have 3 minutes to speak. We don't have a big timer up here. We have Tip's cell phone. It's very formal. But so we're using that. Tip's going to raise her hand when there's 10 seconds left. We find that if we actually say words, you get interrupted, and that's really hard. So if you see her raising her hand, you have 10 seconds. We really need to stick to 3 minutes or less because we are on a tight time schedule. So you can talk about as many topics as you want in your 3 minutes. If it's your first hearing with us, which it may be for some of you, please note our job as members of House Appropriations Committee is simply to listen to your testimony. So we're not having a debate, not asking questions. We're just listening to you. So finally, if your time is up and you have more you'd like to let us know, please feel free to submit written testimony. You're welcome to do that. You can send it directly to Erin Pedley, our committee assistant, and then we'll be certainly reading all written testimony as well. So thanks. It's great to see all of you here. So let's start with Dan Noyes, and then next up is Molly Burke.
Great, thank you so much. Dan Noyes, serve on the Human Services Committee. I'm actually here wearing a different hat. I, in my other job, work with many of the Meals on Wheels providers here in Vermont and senior centers. And in the past, we have started to put some state funds towards offsetting the cost of delivering Meals on Wheels. Last year, we were able to match that with Medicaid investment money, which brought about $1 million in general fund, 1.3 in Medicaid investment. So that is matched together with Older Americans Act money, roughly $3-ish, $4, up mid threes. Was on an Older Vermonters Caucus today, and we had a representative from Senator Welch's office who was talking about what's going on with the Older Americans Act and the fact that it's in the continuing resolution that expires on March 14th. So just want to put that out there that our federal funding for our Meals on Wheels programs is in the CR. So just keep an eye on that and think about what that means to Vermont when a majority of our funding comes through the federal government. So we just had a meal cost analysis that Dale did. And I'm just going to run through some of the what it costs to actually make and deliver these meals. St. Albans, Middlebury, Burlington, Underhill, Franklin, $10.36. Burke, $17.90. Putney, $10.09. Waterbury, $16.45. Morrisville, $9.16. Chittenden, $7.47. So we're looking to the small nonprofits that are around Vermont to be able to buy food, recruit volunteers, pay for the insurance, keep the lights on. In some cases, kind of run these small nonprofits. Some of the agencies or some of the area agencies on aging have contracted with Trio Meals. So other ones are small nonprofits throughout our state. So I just thought, as you're going through the budget process, to think about how we make sure older Vermonters have access to nutrition, and just thought I'd bring up a few numbers. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much. Molly Burke, you're up next, and then Teddy Zach is up after that. Okay. All right, off we go.
Record, Representative Molly Burke of Brattleboro. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I know you have a very hard job ahead of you. I am here to ask for $20 million for a fund that is set out in recently introduced Bill H229, which is in the Agricultural Department. And the purpose of the bill is to establish a farm and forestry operations security special fund. to provide financial assistance to farms and forestry operations that experienced great losses due to weather conditions. And the reasons the group of farming organizations came together in the wake of the 2023 and 2024 flooding. A lot of those farms did not have crop insurance. Other programs are difficult to access. And this would set up a special fund that has with reimbursement up to 50% of uninsured or uncovered losses due to eligible weather conditions with a maximum award of $150,000. The process is very easy. Application is, the review would be within 1 week. And if they were approved by the board, the award would go out within 2 weeks. So it's a very, very easy issue. I think that these groups that came together were the Rural Vermont Farm Bureau, Center for Agricultural Economy, NOFA, a lot of different farm organizations are behind this. And we all know that we need to start adapting to the climate crisis and ensuring our farms can continue producing and boosting rural economies, protecting the food we need, health of our land, preserving the heart of our communities, et cetera. $20 million, that would start the fund. Am I still?
Good.
And then afterwards, the award would be based on, in succeeding years, the annual appropriation will be equal to 50% of the average documented farm losses from eligible weather conditions averaged over 3 years. You can remember all that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Teddy, you're up next, and then Ashley Bartley.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Teddy Wozniak from Berry City for the record, and I am here to advocate generally for continued investment by the state in flood response and recovery statewide. This morning, you will all have received from me an email of the draft 2025 flood omnibus bill, and there is a number of items in that require appropriations, but I wanted to call your attention to a couple of specific ones. First is FEMA match money for our municipalities. Last year, the state, in response to the 2023 floods, covered a lot of the matching money that's required of municipalities to gain access to FEMA resources, and that is a very important support. I'm frankly unsure whether all of that money was used or whether there's still some funding there, but continuing that support in one way or another is very important. There's also 2 positions within the Division of Emergency Management that is asked for: a municipal grant liaison, someone in the state to help municipalities. You know, Berry City has a professional staff of over 100 employees. A lot of our smaller, more rural towns, especially in the Northeast Kingdom, do not have those types of capacities. So this individual would help the municipalities navigate the grant process, gain access to state and federal funding, as well as a flood mitigation technician, which would be an engineer within the Division of Emergency Management to identify priority projects across the state, looking at the full watersheds that we have. And recommending projects for that as well as continued support for municipal operation funding. Last year as well, the legislature sent direct financial assistance to many municipalities across the state just to help them keep the lights on. And for municipalities like Berry that have been hit by 2 floods back to back, that support is still needed, not at the same level as it was, because our towns have done great work to stretch dollars far, but that support is still needed. And we know that there were towns that were hit significantly in 2024 that were not hit in 2023. So those are the 3 big items. I could go on and on about the 12 pages of other appropriations that we would be delighted to have. But those are just 3 of the big ones that would be most important and most impactful for our communities across the state.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, appreciate it. Ashley Bartley, and followed by Kate McCann, and Kate is on Zoom. And then, so after Kate would be Brian. Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. For the record, Representative Ashley Bartley of Fairfax. And to be honest, you're not usually going to hear me ask for money, and I'm hoping that my ask is going to be one of the lower ones you hear today. I know your job isn't easy, but I'm asking the committee to consider the funding request for Empty Arms Vermont. 1 in 4 pregnancies end in a loss. And within the first month of my first legislative session, I actually experienced a miscarriage in the bathroom upstairs. But it wasn't until a year later that I was introduced to the incredible work of Empty Arms Vermont. Sorry. The organization provides vital peer support to individuals and families who've experienced miscarriage, stillbirth, early infant loss, or pregnancy termination for medical reasons. Although the organization is called Empty Arms Vermont, the organization opens its arms to Vermont families during their darkest times, offering a wide range of services, including peer support groups, annual reimbursement nights, a 5K run and walk, which is the only run I've ever done, yoga classes, discussion groups for families and friends, miscarriage support bags in OBGYN clinics, and care packages with weighted teddy bears. Why is this important? Individuals who experience pregnancy and early infant loss are at a heightened risk for perinatal mood and anxiety order, also known as PMADs, compared to those without prior loss. Untreated PMADs are responsible for an estimated $48 million in societal costs in Vermont alone. The ask is for $40,000 in funding for each of the next 2 years, which is $80,000 in total, to ensure sustained growth and continued support for those in need. While their funding request did not make it into the governor's budget, it was recommended by Commissioner Mark Levine in the 2025 Maternal Mortality Review Panel support, stating Empty Arms Vermont is currently the only organization providing perinatal loss support. Additional funding would help expand their workforce, or something we're all talking about, and extend their reach to more rural areas in Vermont. From a rural community, that's really important to me. The organization is filling a gap in the system of care for pregnancy and infant loss across the state. Remember, 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss, and one of the most difficult things is how isolating it is because we don't speak about it. These peer groups make sure that your voice is heard. A need for support that has been identified for the Vermont Department of Health, state legislators, and Vermont families. Again, I want to thank you all. This is not an easy job, so thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Sorry. I'm gonna wave at you 10 seconds. Okay. How's that? That would be great. Thank you. Is Kate on Zoom? Okay, let's enter Kate.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Kate.
All right. For the record, Kate McCann from Montpelier. In a time when so many communities are concerned about test scores and students' ability to focus while in class, it's crucial to recognize that free meals play a significant role in these outcomes. Research has shown that students who are hungry are unable to focus or remain physically regulated. For some students, the free meals at school are the only hot and nutritious meals they receive daily. Students who are nourished do better in school, and we have a vested interest in the academic performance of school kids since they're the next generation in the workforce. One thing that keeps getting overlooked too is that feeding children in schools helps them stay in school. We also know that if we don't provide meals for every kid at school, some kids will go hungry. This is especially true for our most transient student population who rely on free meals as their unhousedness denies them an opportunity for nutritious meals. So many Vermont families don't qualify for school meals because the poverty threshold is really low, but they're not actually making enough money to pay for groceries and clothes and heating fuel and rent and all the other things. It's horrific, but some young people will even have food withheld out of either abuse or neglect. We can prevent kids from going hungry at school. We should prevent kids from going hungry at school. The lifelong health implications of a consistently nutritious diet during childhood cannot be overstated. Science shows that children's nutrition is directly linked to healthy development, and that a nutritious diet reduces a child's risk of obesity, diabetes, and developing chronic conditions such as heart disease, tooth decay, high blood pressure, and cancer later in life. During these critical childhood years, children develop lifelong food preferences. Meals provided by school, which are often healthier than meals that low-income children receive at home, help children create good eating habits that will carry through to adulthood. In my district, and I suspect in others as well, Montpelier High School, in addition to universal school meals, provides our students who cannot afford to buy extra food for themselves. The school spends an additional $200 per week for our most needy students who need more than free breakfast and lunch. If the free meal program were to be discontinued, the financial burden on MHS would significantly increase, potentially affecting other areas of the school's budget. The bottom line is that we can't be complaining about the cost of living and cutting essential programs at the same time. Removing universal school meals would be a step backwards in our efforts to ensure that every student has the opportunity to succeed. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kate. I don't see Rep. Sheena here, so let's go to Chris Morrow, and Angela and Ella will be after that.
Afternoon, thank you for your time. Chris Morrow, Wyndham Windsor Bennington District. I'm here to ask for $5 million for the amazing work of the Vermont Food Bank. This would be broken down into 3 buckets. 1.75 million is base funding for their emergency response readiness program. This is a new program in collaboration or with the support of Vermont Emergency Management. And it's part of the 10-year flood, the food security roadmap. So in this, food and water would be pre-positioned at their distribution centers around Vermont for rapid response after the next disaster. So this is a crucial part of Vermont's resilience planning in the future. $2 million would be to buy food from Vermont farmers as part of their Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program. This money works double for us by supporting both the food insecure folks and also Vermont farmers. It's crucial to develop a strong farmer ecosystem to improve food security in Vermont. 299 Vermont farms have been supported through this program already. And the remaining 1.25 million would be for their regular distribution operations. The food bank serves an average of 72,000 Vermonters every month. Their fiscal year 26 budget is $26 million. So this is a simple ask for very fundamental needs. Food and water are fundamental for all of us, especially after an emergency. So please support this.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Angela and Ella together, I think, in your 3 minutes, and then Charlie can go after that.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity. I'm Representative Angela Arsenault from Williston.
Representative Ella Chapin from East Montpelier.
We are coming to you as co-chairs of the Women's Caucus. The Women's Legislative Caucus has for many years been learning about and paying attention to a number of issues, including reproductive health, equity and equal rights, childcare, and the well-being of justice-involved women and their families. Through our learning together and our work on all the various committees across the House and Senate, we see a key issue holding back Vermont's ability to support our most vulnerable individuals and populations. That is a lack of adequate and predictable funding for the nonprofit networks that provide critical services and programs for these communities. These essential services, provided at the community level and funded at least in part by public funds, often directly affect women, children, and families. The inaccurately titled practice of level funding these vital organizations needs to end. We know this neither allows them to continue at the same level nor meets the true and growing needs of our communities.
In our FY26 budget and into the future, let's support the provision of critical services by nonprofit, non-governmental organizations with at least an increase to match inflation and ideally to match the actual needs of Vermonters. In particular, we want to today to advocate and support sustainable funding levels for 2 particular networks of nonprofits. The dedicated employees at the The dedicated employees at the 15-member organizations of the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, who answer thousands of hotline and chat line calls from Vermonters every year. This may need to include establishing a new and sustainable revenue source for the Domestic and Sexual Violence Special Fund and other investments in domestic and sexual violence services. And the second network is home, facility, and community-based long-term care providers through Medicaid reimbursement rate increases who provide essential bathing, dressing, cooking, cleaning, nursing, and socialization assistance to older Vermonters and others. We do acknowledge and support that H13, which just passed the House moments ago, is a step in this direction and would address the Medicaid reimbursement issues with needed information and is a great step forward, but we really do need to change the funding for these networks. We've also identified a few additional opportunities to address immediate and important needs and ask that you carefully consider two other investments. One is to support the creation of a Medicaid supplemental reimbursement for core family planning services. This is proposed by PDNE, Planned Parenthood of New England, and the creation of a Safe Harbor Award program outlined in House Bill 214 to enable grants and aid related to reproductive and gender affirming healthcare services. And we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Right on the money. Okay. Charlie is up next and then Monique Beasley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Most of the time we try to govern. Sometimes we like to advocate. I'm here as an advocate today for the Working Lands Enterprise Fund. So I was first introduced to this when I met Paul Costello a number of years ago before I was an elected representative, former head of the Vermont Council on Rural Development. And he was with Tom Debevoy, who is the head of the Council on the Future. I wanted to write it down. The Council on the Future of Vermont, which issued its report in 2009. And so the Working Lands Enterprise Fund was started in 2012, 3 years later. And Paul remained a constant advocate for the Working Lands Enterprise Fund. And there's a reason for it. It's because our working landscape is unique to Vermont. It is what is important for the economic development of the state of Vermont. Some things you can't recreate, and you can't recreate our landscape and our working landscape. So I'm here to advocate that the $1 million request that's in your budget be increased to $3 million. In the past few years, you've had a good amount of money coming through from ARPA funds or redirected into this program, and it is something that we shouldn't stop doing. During COVID, I thought that we would see an entrenchment of local food production and getting away from being reliant on importing food and other substances to support our local population. That has happened in part, but hasn't happened enough. And we need to invest in what we can to make that continue to happen and support the economy and support our landscape while we're doing it. So I'm here to say, please look at the increase up to $3 million for that particular fund. Thank you.
Charlie. Monique. After Monique is Emily Crescent. You see her.
Yes. It's on the ground. For the record, Monique Beasley. I'm here to speak in support of the Vermont State Youth Council in the forms of both an extension of a sunset as well as an appropriation request of $120,000. The Youth Council, for people who aren't familiar with that, is made up of 28 youth, ages 11 to 18. They serve 3-year terms. They meet monthly and they hold up to 4 public hearings per year. This started in 2017 when 40 young people got together, ages 9 to 22, to draft the Youth Declaration of Rights. In 2020, a bill was introduced, H775, and it got delayed because of COVID, 2020. And then your own Rep. Murwicki and then Lanford reintroduced the bill in 2021, H293, to create the State Youth Council. And then in 2024, the Youth Council delivered its first inaugural recommendations on policy recommendations. I've had the privilege of having 3 of the members shadow me, and they're just super impressive. They're super proud to be on the council. And they're just like they want to be in the building now. Like, they want to be reps, they want to be senators, they want to be governor someday. It's really fun to like have them excited. They come like they are very proud and like about going to the meetings. They all have priority areas that they're very like they have researched, they've done the work. It is not just like something they're doing as a club for fun. Like this is their life. So anyways, just here to support that and ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Emily, and then Eric McGuire.
Facts to follow. Hi, hello, Rep. Emily Krasnow. I'm here today to urge your support for 2.4 million request to continue and expand the SASH for All pilot program, which is currently open and operating in Brattleboro and surrounding small towns in Windham County. The request is broken down as follows: 400,000 to continue the existing pilot program and 2 million to expand into areas of highest need, including Bennington, Rutland, Central Vermont, Burlington, and the Northeast Kingdom, reaching over 1,200 adults and families with children. SASH for All is an innovative program that builds upon the highly successful Vermont-grown support and services at home SASH program, which has made a remarkable impact on the health and well-being of over 12,000 older adults and individuals with disabilities over the past 12 years. SASH for All is currently in its third year, serving 250 Vermonters and their families with proven outcomes that demonstrate its effectiveness, preventing homelessness. 19 evictions have been prevented to date, improving health and well-being, reducing social isolation and loneliness, increasing community connections, and building a stronger sense of support. The SASH for All program offers a unique team-based approach that includes a wellness nurse, a SASH coordinator, and a mental health clinician. Together, they work with individuals and families to define wellness goals, address crisis situations, and prevent homelessness. The team is supported by a network of local service agencies, ensuring that those in need have access to a comprehensive community-based support system. The long-term sustainability of SASH for All program is built into the all-payer model, which will replace the current funding model starting in January 2027. For now, SASH for All is funded through a 3-year grant from M&T Bank and one-time grant from Agency of Human Services. However, despite the positive outcomes of the program, the governor's recommended budget does not include the necessary funding to continue and expand the program. I ask that you please support at minimum $400,000 to ensure the continuation of the pilot so that 250 Vermont families currently benefiting from the program can continue to receive these critical services and remain safely housed. Ideally, I ask that you include the full 2.4 million request to continue and expand SASH for All, allowing for it to reach other areas in the state and support over 1,200 individuals and families. SASH for All is a proven program that is ready to be fully replicated by Cathedral Square and other housing organizations across Vermont. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Eric, and then Carolyn Brannigan.
Hi, good afternoon, Eric McGuire, Rutland City. Please support the budget requests coming from the Recovery Partners of Vermont, which include the following. Base increase of $666,000 in total for our certified recovery residents. This request is further broken down between general fund and opioid special funds, but the total need is an increase of $660,000 over the governor's recommend. Recovery residencies have proven to be a good return on investment for the state. The 1.2 million that was appropriated last year helped to bring an additional 40 beds online, and there are active efforts underway to continue to scale this resource. Second, a base increase of 1.6 million for our recovery centers. It is important to know that recovery residents and recovery centers are two distinct and separate entities. They are both under Recovery Partners of Vermont, but the $660 for residents and the 1.6 for centers go to different organizations, a total of 14 organizations that serve the entire state. Recovery centers are struggling to keep up with the demand for their services. The opioid public health crisis and this funding will help to expand services, including being open on weekends. And a couple of one-time requests from the opioid abatement fund. The first is to please restore the $325,000 in opioid special funds to provide scholarships to cover the initial entry expenses for individuals entering a recovery residency. This ensures that no one is denied the opportunity to live in a recovery residency due to a lack of funds, and allows the individual to focus on finding employment and creating early stability for themselves. Unfortunately, the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee did not recommend continue this funding, which was included last year. The second is $500,000 to support oral health among people in early recovery. The Department of Health has listed oral health as a high priority, but currently there is no dedicated funding for this purpose. People out working boots on the ground have also identified this as a high need, as poor dental conditions is one of the most common characteristics seen in the people they serve and can prevent people from gaining meaningful employment, along with being a precursor to many medical conditions and premature death. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Okay, we have Carolyn and then Jana, and I see Brian's come back in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Carolyn Brannigan, and I represent the towns of Georgia and Fairfax up in Franklin County. And I'm a member of the House of Representatives. I've served here in the State House for 21 years. And back in 2012, I got together with 3 other legislators because we saw a big lack in funding and efforts regarding agricultural economic development. So we decided to form the Working Lands Enterprise Fund. So I'm here this afternoon to put in my 2 cents regarding that organization, which you've already heard one member speak to this afternoon. The Working Lands Enterprise Board unites the state, nonprofit, private sector in leaderships and creating economic development for Vermont's working lands, making essential the catalytic investments and critical leverage points in Vermont farms and forest economy, and from individual enterprises that the industry contains. This is one of those efforts, members, that will make money back for us. It's not only an investment for us, but we are investing in projects that will help support these family farmers and loggers and maple producers and help them put money back into the economy. It's extremely valuable, and I hope that you can find your way to support them. Now, about finding your way to support them. I've been on the Ways and Means Committee. Most of the time I've served here in the legislature. I know how hard it is to find money. So when I believe you've heard 2 figures in support of this program, one is $1 million, one is $3 million. Anywhere in between those 2 figures will make me happy. So I'm not going to come here again and nag you. I know how hard your job is, but I appreciate your listening to me this afternoon. Madam Chair, do you have a copy of this handout regarding working lands? I'll leave it here.
Yeah, that would be fine.
I'm happy to.
Thanks very much.
Have a good afternoon.
Okay, Jana and then Brian.
Good afternoon, House Appropriations. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time this afternoon. For the record, I'm Representative Jana Brown of Richmond, and I am here today to talk to all of you about a request from Hunger Free Vermont. So I'm here in support of Hunger Free Vermont's request for an appropriation of $182,000 to the Agency of Education to support the Vermont Child and Adult Care Food Program. So that's the CACFP. And that is a food program that helps support home-based child care providers across Vermont. And I do have a handout here that I'll leave with all of you. So the motivation behind this request for an appropriation is to create appropriate reimbursement and incentives for other programs within Vermont to act as fiscal sponsors for the CACFP program. So I'll unravel that a little bit for all of you. It is a few different acronyms. So CACFP is the child nutrition program that early childhood education programs can access to receive cash reimbursements from the federal government for eligible meals and snacks. So this particular program supports some of our small home-based family childcare providers across Vermont. And in order for these folks, these small providers to access this programming, they need a fiscal sponsor in the form of a larger entity that can help them with some administrative and financial processes. And for these fiscal sponsors, they're also responsible for site visits. So the current amount that folks are receiving to be fiscal sponsors does not fully cover the cost that it takes them to appropriately administer this program. So that is why we have the request for $182,000 before us. And I'll just really quickly note, it's a fairly simple and straightforward request. I'll leave the handout in case folks have questions about what it is or how many programs it's serving. So I leave this request with you because I feel like this work intersects with a lot of the policy areas that this legislature has supported in recent years. So food insecurity work, which becomes increasingly more important as families across the state are struggling with the cost of food, the importance of child nutrition in general, supporting our childcare sector. There are lots of different program types within that system. I know from my work outside the legislature that supporting those family home-based programs is really important. And also we talk a lot in this building about allowing folks within our small state to maximize federal funding. So this is an appropriation that certainly does that. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I will leave
Just
the materials on the table.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And Rep. Chino.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes, 3 minutes. So I'll try to keep it short and sweet without a lot of detail, and I can always follow up with stuff in writing that's detailed. So first, I'd like to ask that we freeze the pay raises of the highest level executive branch staff at the current level and not move forward with the 2026 raise that we voted on in the past budget. I have an amendment that I didn't offer on the floor that outlines the details of this that I can share with the committee and shows you that we could save up to $2 million in spending by freezing those raises. It's unjust that we would give those raises to those making the most while being asked to freeze increases in funding for agencies serving those with the least and who employ the workers who are struggling to make ends meet. So it's only fair to ask those with the most to free. They got a raise. That's enough for now. And we need to tighten the belt, as the governor says. So we need to freeze his pay. Then we need to reinvest these savings into housing. And I could say a lot about housing, so I'm not right now. I'll send you, there's a bill that hasn't come out yet from Leg Council that I'll send you that outlines in detail some of these ideas. But essentially, we need to put money into the public engagement process on land use and turn people out to dream of the communities they want. And then we need to invest in those dreams. And those dreams need to include certain pieces, in my opinion, such as funding for people to purchase land and buildings that are owner occupied, and incentives for people to sell buildings to tenants, renovations of owner occupied buildings so that they can expand housing, collective ownership of land by resident cooperatives where they can develop housing, and collective ownership of land for private development of affordable housing, especially for those who are justice involved and unhoused. And we need to be creative about sheltering people right now. We need to think out of the box. And I will send you some details on some of these examples of how we can move forward quicker to addressing the public health emergency of this housing crisis. We also need to build the community capacity to do things ourselves, that there's a workforce shortage and we can't find contractors to fix our homes or build the housing we need. But if we could launch programs to teach the community more skills, we'd build the workforce up and create community competency to do it ourselves. I call it barn raising 2025. Like on the weekends, people could come out and help each other fix our houses, help each other build housing, and then create tool banks where we can share tools, labor pools, and recycling repair shops, maker spaces are some of the ideas about how to build that competency. And last but not least, it's probably been 3 minutes, the state needs to look at its role in, you do have a timer.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
10 seconds.
Okay, well, make it quick. The state needs to study the need for state-run housing. We never followed through on deinstitutionalization. So we really need to look at how the state can build housing for different populations. And I'll give you one example. In Finland, youth age 18 to 26 have the option of living in public housing, and their rent, a portion of it goes into an account. And as they age out of that, they leave with a down payment for a home or an apartment. And so we need to be creative about how to create housing infrastructure that fills the gaps for those who are falling through the safety net. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
20 seconds over maybe, but I appreciate it.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. And those are everybody's names that I've had. So thank you all very much. That was great to hear from legislators, and hopefully they see we're cordial, friendly. Right, Jim?
I tried to smile.
Okay, good.
Great job.
So I'm just looking at the agenda for tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday. Agency of Education is here at 9 a.m. And then we have a joint assembly to elect UVM trustees and the election of the sergeant at arms. I didn't know we had to elect her again, but we're doing that too. And then we have the HCB after that. And then tomorrow afternoon, we'll have the Tobacco Settlement Fund, the Land Use Review Board, the Veterans Home, and the Green Mountain Care Board. And then we have our joint hearing. So rest up, bring snacks. We'll be done by 6:30 tomorrow night, so you can eat dinner after, but you have a little bit of time for a late afternoon snack if you need it. Okay? So thank you all.